Hi, I'm London. This is Sophie, Danny, and Rachel, and we are proposing the application of a metal organic framework and a super absorbent polymer as a seed coating to help combat high salinity levels and droughts in California's Central Valley. California is the main producer of almonds and lettuce, and they are both water-intensive and salinity-sensitive crops. California economy is a big part of the agricultural industry because, as you can see, we make $5.3 billion from almonds. Due to the lack of irrigation water, farmers often resort to saline groundwater, which is detrimental to the growth of these crops because there's excess salt in the plants. As you can see by our diagram, this is an endless cycle, and it's damaging California's economy. So with our product, we hope to put an end to it.
So while there are techniques currently being used to target drought and salinity levels in soil, they are expensive, unsustainable, and impractical. One thing that's currently being used is desalination. Desalination is an effective treatment, however, it's very expensive to operate on a large scale and also takes up a lot of power. So what farmers need is another technique. We are proposing a dual layer coating for seeds. The outer layer, as seen in red, is the metal organic framework, and on the interior, as seen in yellow, is the super absorbent polymer.
The outer layer is made from a zirconium-based metal organic framework, which mimics the function of a cell membrane. Because the water molecules in the soil are polar, they're attracted to the oppositely charged sodium and chlorine ions, forming a solvation shell around the salt. This prevents the salt ions from entering the sap layer and keeps them from interfering with the germination process. Meanwhile, the water enters the sap layer and is formed into a miniature reservoir around the seed, allowing it to maximize groundwater. A 0.1 millimeter coating of MOF and a 0.1 millimeter coating of sap will be applied to the seed, relying on techniques used by pharmaceutical companies to coat pills. The MOF is based on zirconium, an organic ligand, so it has extremely low systemic toxicity and is not taken up by most land plants, while the sap is starch-based and has no harmful microplastics. Because this coating is safe for the environment and it's cost-effective and relies on the novel integration of two existing technologies, it's a great option for farmers.
3 major investment firms in the agricultural field are Thrive, AG Tech, and Western Growers. These companies have historically funded farming startups similar to ours with similar goals as our product, which is to be ecologically friendly and cost-effective. However, our product offers an innovative and novel approach to the issue, making it different from our competitors.
The target consumer for this product would be California's agricultural retailers. Acquisition by a larger company such as Nutrien or Helena would allow our project to reach a larger market of farmers.
So we would begin with prototyping, and that milestone would take about 3 months. We would follow it with testing, which would also take about 3 months. Then would be design control, which would last about a year. Then the 4th milestone would be acquisition by a larger company. And then it would be agricultural use, where the retailers would directly market to consumers. And accounting for the cost of employing chemists and acquiring lab space and materials, our budget would be about $858,000 annually.
So there are 3 things we want to target with our dual layer coating, and the first step is increasing crop growth and health through maximizing groundwater supply during the germination phase. Next is increasing the seed tolerance to high salinity, so through a nanoscale ion filtration. And last is increasing the profitability of these crops using a technology that is not only safe for the soil, but also for the environment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess I don't even get to ask anymore. Okay, so you outlined that the idea is that the MOF on the outside is going to keep the salt from diffusing in, and then the inner part's going to hold water so the seed has some water.
Right.
So there's 2 questions. The first is, the seed's got to, you want it to be there and protected, but then it has to grow into a plant. And so isn't it going to almost immediately after it germinates going to be exposed to these high salinity environments? And so how does this first step really solve the problem when there's much, much more of the life cycle that you need to go through? That's the first one. And then the second one is, you said the MOF components are not absorbed by most plants, but what will they degrade into? And if you're putting a lot of it in the soil, is that an issue?
To speak to the first question around how the seed will germinate and how the coating will deal with that, so a split coating is going to be used. So basically that's the internal pressure of the seed's germination will break open the coating and allow the seed to germinate, and then the coating will be left in the soil. And regarding the second point, that definitely is a concern. So all the papers that we had looked at through our research suggest that the zirconium is safe. However, that's definitely a legitimate concern about the quantities of it that will be in the soil.
Okay, but then also after the coating splits, then the little plant will immediately be exposed to the high salinity.
Right. So the reason that we focused on the germination phase is because in addition to salinity, we're also dealing with lack of fresh irrigation water. So we wanted to focus on germination because that's the most water-intensive phase of plant growth, and we thought that that's where it would make the most of an economic and environmental impact as far as preserving water.
So you mentioned that it's the germination phase is the most water-intensive. What is the relative percentage of kind of usage of water in germination versus post?
We don't have an exact percentage on that, but that's definitely a great question, so I'll look into that and get back to you.
And that'll impact kind of what the cost benefit is, right?
Right.
So how much would it cost a farmer per acre, per whatever measurement that you want to kind of take? How much additional cost would this be?
So the coating itself is very cost effective. It's relatively cheap. So scaling that up won't have too much an effect on the budget, but definitely it would increase as we were to expand. But the coating itself is very, very cost effective.
How much would you sell? Are you selling the coated seed, or are you selling the process? You give me the seed, I'll do the process for you. Or are you selling the seed from Monsanto and go?
I think there's two avenues we could take that. One would be licensing the technology to an agricultural retailer so that they would be able to take that technology and produce it themselves. And the other would be producing the product and then selling it to larger retailers to market specifically to farmers.
And so do you know how much extra it's going to cost versus the current seed that they're buying?
We also factored in the fact of hiring a managing team and sales force into the budget. So that is accounting for managers and representatives to market it.
I mean, like, for example, let's say I buy a bag of seeds, right, from an agricultural retailer for whatever it is, $10, right? Will this cost me 11, 12, or less?
So it definitely costs more than just regular seeds, but especially the SAP layer is it's based on wheat bran, which is like an agricultural waste product. So it wouldn't be very much more expensive, but the cost would definitely increase.
Adding on to that, this is not a specific number attached to it, but it'd be saving farmers money in another way because some of the methods that they use, one of them includes targeted planting that's common to help farmers treat salinity in soil, where they plant crops that aren't the intended crop surrounding what they're trying to grow in order to soak up the salinity out of the soil. This would increase productivity because they wouldn't need to be planting crops that they're not intending to sell yet.
Would the effectiveness of the seed coating be impacted by any treatments that the crops may encounter during the growing process? And I'm specifically thinking about a situation where you are in a non-organic growing environment and the farm is using pesticides. You're introducing another chemical into the process.
We didn't actually look into that, and I think just assume that this would be more targeted towards organic farming practices, because we don't actually know what the ramifications would be if other chemicals were introduced.
We have time for one more question if there is one. And if not, then thank you, ladies.
Thank you.